Earlier today, we got the patch 20 update for Fallout 76, the long-awaited update bringing a plethora of bug fixes, but also the long-awaited seasons system for the game. Seasons being a new Battle Pass-esque feature introduced with this update, but that will continue with the game seemingly in perpetuity. Right now we're on Season 1, but we could already see plans for 2 and 3 later this year. In this video, I want to recap just about everything that was added, some of this just official features, going over how some of these new things work, some other things that ended up being features but maybe weren't intended or meant to be official, and even some things that just didn't end up getting fixed. If you guys enjoy the content, you can leave a like or subscribe. That does really help this channel and with the YouTube algorithm. But otherwise, let's first take a look at Seasons, the big new feature addition to Fallout 76. Now as you log into the game, you'll have a big pop-up as well as access to the Legendary Run, which is the name of Season 1. It has a board game-esque design where effectively you're racing against the evil Dr. Zorbo. And with each of these seasons, there will be a distinctive theme. This first one happens to be a space theme, as well as many of the rewards you can get throughout the season have a space theme to them. That's pretty self-explanatory. As you can see on this game board, you do have a certain level. Each time you level up, you will go to a next spot, which happens to have a type of reward. But it's nice how you could get a fully fledged in-depth view on all of the various rewards. So the way you could rank up and start getting some of these rewards, of which 40 are new cosmetic items, which right now you could only get via this system, is to complete either weekly or daily challenges. This too got a bit of an overhaul with this update, and that really being on two fronts. Firstly, in the nature of the challenge, what you're required to do. These seasons challenges are just very simple. A lot of them are actually pretty easy to complete, such that you could definitely do all of them today like I did. But even further, they no longer award you atoms, but rather score. Score being the type of points that will progress your level in the season system. It's not something you could trade for, you just earn them as a result of completing these. And with these, again, they are weekly or daily, and you can see a clear timer, so you know that you have this amount of time to complete them, and then it'll refresh for the next batch. And from there, it's kind of self-explanatory. Just do these challenges, you'll gradually rank up. It seems like today you get roughly to rank 8. Many of these daily ones are very, very simple, things you will just probably end up doing if you play the game. Some other things you might have to go out of your way to do. Although one of the interesting things is this really does make you play the game more. Like, you might just have this typical way you play Fallout 76, your own little corner that you tend to stick to. But these seasons and actually wanting to complete the challenges got me doing other things, whether it be exploring locations I typically don't, trying to loot specific items I typically don't even think twice about, and it definitely did get me a bit more invested right off the bat in the game. I wanted to progress this to try out some of those new rewards. Although something pretty interesting that you should definitely abuse, for all of the challenges in the weekly section that currently require 5 things to be completed, so basically there are like 10 options, you just have to finish 5 of them. Currently, if you finish 3, it'll give you the points. There's a bug right now, Bethesda is aware of it, but it gives you 1,000 points or whatever the reward amount is if you just do 3 of the 5 things. You can do all 5 and it will mark as completed, but you're not going to get any more points, but it is just a few easier things that you could abuse right now before it gets fixed. Also, there's a level up requirement for one of these to level up 3 times, so if you're a high level player, that's going to be very difficult. But you could alternatively just make a new account, fast travel to a public event, and get a ton of experience just by being there or one hit a high level. So it's a little tip on how to progress that one. And lastly, one of the unique parts about this is the one way to constantly progress the season system as fast as you could possibly go is experience. So all of these other challenges are on a daily or weekly basis, and they're fixed in that regard. Once you complete them, you could have no more for the day. But one of the challenges is just gain 10,000 experience, and it will reward you 100 score points. And you can do this as many times as you possibly can. It's always just going to be there in the background. As far as the new items you could check out from this right off the bat, we do have these new Vault-Tec supply packages. It'll just give you a fixed amount of certain junk types, and actually this is one of the challenges that completed it for me just by redeeming this thing, so probably good to have that. We also do have lunchboxes, which although data mined over a year ago, were finally added into the game. They feature that same opening lunchbox animation that I showed you guys over a year ago. These are pretty cool in that they'll give you bonus experience, and you could open them while around other players, and it'll also give all of them bonus experience, as well as one other random effect. Like I had the effect where enemies I killed blew up into confetti, but you could get other things like not having to eat or drink as often. And these bonuses will stack. So let's say you open a lunchbox and a second one, you could get 2 different effects, and even further, you'll continually stack the experience bonus up to 100%, with it being 25% additional per lunchbox. But then the big one, and one of the controversial ones, is this new ammo converter. For a long time now, fans of Fallout 76 have been seeking a way to either sell or just convert their unused ammo to other unused ammo. You can sell ammo at vending machines to other players, but you can't sell it to vendors. But now, just at level 5 of the score system, so very early on, fairly easy to get to, you will be able to convert one ammo type to another, except this thing is horrific. In several ways, in fact, just right off the bat, look at the menu system on this. To get to the desired ammo type, you have to click like 3-4 times, and even further, it is a fixed quantity. So the way it'll work is, let's say you have 20.38 rounds, you will trade those 20.38 rounds for a certain amount of ammo points, and then you could use those ammo points to buy other ammo types. Except you could only ever trade 20 at a time, and then it backs you out to the first menu. So you have to sit here going through it tirelessly, and it actually takes a decent amount of time. It's annoying enough that I'm probably not going to use it for that reason alone. I'll just stick to selling my ammo in vending machines like I normally do. I don't know how Bethesda thought this UI was okay. It is ridiculously clunky and just obnoxious to use. And for those of you maybe wondering, well, why wasn't that caught in the PTS? This system wasn't in the PTS. The season system was just disabled because the atomic shop isn't in the PTS, or at least that was Bethesda's justification. And it's kind of astonishing that, one, somebody actually made this menu system and thought it was okay. Like, was it some new intern that somebody was just like, hey, you could handle this? But then even further, did nobody at Bethesda try this? Because like within 10 seconds of using this machine, I was frustrated and I realized, okay, this is a horrible design. It's confusing. You don't know what those menus exactly mean. And just bizarre because Fallout 76 has a lot of other menu types that would work perfectly as an alternative. And of course, it is a nightmare to use for those who were excited to dump their 20,000 .38 rounds that they've been sitting on for the past few months, but otherwise unable to move. And even further, for those people, there's actually an ammo point limit of 2,000. So they would have to basically dump all of the rounds in, buy a bunch of other rounds, which all of this is going to take a while because of how many times you have to click, and sit here doing this exchange for probably a long time to burn through your entire stockpile. But then again, speaking of those exchange rates, they are also pretty horrible. We talked about this as it was data mined from the PTS, but for one easy example, 0.38 rounds, you trade these at 18 per trade. You can sell them for 20 points, but you could buy 18 for 100 points. So it is 5 times more expensive to buy those rounds, which is natural. You'd expect it to be more expensive. 5 times is a lot. And also, just in general, these exchange rates make 0 sense. Like, you would assume they would all just be 5 times more expensive to buy than how much you get for selling them, but no, that's not true. Like, for several, it is. For 38 rounds, shotgun shells, as well as 45 rounds. The predominant difference being the quantity you are trading. But then when it comes to 0.308 rounds, it is 7.5 times more expensive to buy them compared to what you could sell the same amount for. I don't know where these conversions came from, why some ammo's better on the sell side, some's better on the buy side. It's just very, very weird. And I think Bethesda messed up with this because, like, you can't buy flamer fuel. I could put my flamer fuel into the machine, but when it comes to the buy side, there's the wrong listings here. It has 10mm ammo in the energy section. So conceptually, I think an ammo converter is a great addition to Fallout 76, but in practice, this thing has so many things wrong with it. Hopefully it'll get tweaked and updated, but it's almost in a way kind of embarrassing that a AAA company added this to their game in this current state. It's just bad. It's not tested, and it's very obvious it wasn't tested appropriately. Like, they didn't even double check that they had the appropriate ammos listed in the appropriate categories. And actually, funny enough, there are several reports that at points it just breaks. I had this happen to me. I don't know if I did something to cause this, but the machine just wouldn't populate the menus, and I sat here for a minute or two, tried server hopping, tried scrapping it, and neither fixed the problem. It just started working a couple minutes later. There are a lot of other rewards all throughout the season system, several cosmetics, several other utility items, but overall, one of the other big takeaways is how fast or how slowly you can progress with this. And the progression on seasons is very interesting. So it seems like per level, the required amount of XP to level up goes up by 25. So for a lot of the challenges, they're awarding 250, 500, or for weekly, 1,000 or 1,500 experience. And to go from level 1 to 2 is 1,000 experience, from 2 to 3, 1025 experience. But at least assuming these values stay the same as far as challenge rewards, the breakdown would be, so the way this works is you get 7,500 score from the weeklies for each week, but then 2,000 per day for the dailies. So hypothetically, 14,000 per week from those dailies. So roughly the value of doing all of your dailies is twice that of doing all of your weeklies, but assuming you actually log in every single day. And of course, this does add up in total for 21,500 per week if you complete everything. So what that means is to actually stay relevant or ahead with this system, you have to be logging in almost every day. And in fact, even if you do log in every single day, complete every daily, every weekly, you won't have enough points to get to level 100. So overall, to get to level 100, it'll take roughly 220,000 score. We know that at max, if you do everything, you could get 21,500 score per week, and apparently seasons are 10 weeks long. So what that means is after 10 weeks, if you do everything, you'll only have 215,000, being roughly 5,000 score short. The way this is explained is you will have that repeatable experience daily, where you can just consistently earn experience and it will give you score as a reward. And roughly the calculation is you'll need to gain over 500,000 experience to unlock level 100 for free, as well as doing every single daily and every single weekly. Now technically this math can be modded. If you are just gaining a ton more experience or getting more on the experience side, you can of course miss dailies. Even further, we know that via this system you earn 1,500 atoms, which equates to 10 free unlocks as far as levels go, so you can unlock the last 10 levels for free just by completing up to level 90. But in general, if you are somebody who only plays on weekends, either you're pulling out your wallet or playing an absurd amount on the weekends just to get enough experience to level up. Otherwise, it is just not possible for you to get to level 100. Also, we technically don't know if this will actually be 10 weeks. I'm sure Bethesda isn't even 100% sure yet. That's the number they've been tossing around and describing the seasons overall as, but technically it could be 11 or 12, and that would really shift the number. But even still, you're going to have to be basically playing every single day if you want to keep up with this. So overall with seasons, at least for me, I think as far as the breakdown goes, there's definitely some cool content with this. If you even look at the board game overall, I just think it has a cool design to it. It flows naturally. A lot of the rewards are pretty cool. It sucks that the ammo converter is such a disappointment, but a lot of the other content is just a nice way to get free content. The thing is, a system like this, although I think a healthy addition to the game, is not a replacement for content. This is good to have in the background, like let's say Wastelanders just came out and it also added in this battle pass. That would be good, but otherwise it's really just adding in another grind, which I don't think many people are asking for. I know I for one will not be logging in every single day this week to continue this, because spending a couple of hours each day just to complete some dailies for a cosmetic reward is not worth it to me when there isn't a lot of other new content in the game yet. So overall, I think the season is a good system and good addition to the game. It's just the timing with it being, while there isn't any other real new content yet, makes it fall a bit short until we get some of that new content. But you kind of have to play now if you want to keep up with it. And of course, that's not even getting into the player autonomy aspect, wherein you previously could earn more atoms and spend them how you want, but with this system, you get more free cosmetics but less atoms, and you can't choose what you want with them. Although outside of that, the other major new addition to the game was public teams, and I gotta say, this is one that really surprised me with how good it has been working, at least in these first 24 hours. Public teams, of course, were another one on the PTS. More or less, the way this will work is now, both on the map as soon as you join a server, as well as just from the interface, you will see a variety of public teams that are set up on your world. Public teams have certain focuses, so it could be exploration, hunting legendaries, or even the most popular one, event public teams. And the idea is, if you join a public team of a certain type, you will get a certain bonus, but also it should be geared towards doing that thing. One of the most powerful ones, and probably the one you'll either A, use the most, or at the very least see the most, is the event one, as the bonus for this is bonus experience by completing events. And now that experience becomes way more valuable in that it is required to get to that score cap, you're going to want a lot of experience, and this can really help you. Although, the way to actually get the top tier bonuses is to have a full team where you're fully bonded to everyone else. Just by creating a team, you get a small bonus, such as for events, 25 additional experience by completing events. But then, as other players join, you will see you gradually start to form a bond just by being in a team together. It only takes a few minutes, at roughly 5 minutes or so, to get a full bond. And now, the more bonds you have with other members, the higher the bonus goes. And for the events team, up to 100% additional experience. so double the experience for completing events in the game, which is huge. And although the bonuses you get from these public teams are of course a good incentivizer to actually participate, and they are helpful, in particular some of the experience bonuses, because again, that is so valuable now. But even further outside of that, it really does give you an easy way to just play with other people. A lot of times before this update, I found myself wanting to do an event, but I couldn't find a team to help me. And the only other alternative, if you didn't have friends online, was just start sending out cold invites, like you're cold calling people, hey, come help me over here. But now with these public teams, it really does feel like you kind of stick around with your team. You don't have to. I could play on one side of the map, my team leader could be on the other side, but it does genuinely seem like a good addition that is going to get more player cooperation. As far as whether or not people are going to really stick to that team mantra, whether it be hunting or events, probably not. In particular for ones like casual or role-playing that give you special bonuses, I think sometimes people will just want that special bonus but probably won't be role-playing or won't be doing whatever activity is described. Except for the events and legendary hunting one, because they only really help you if you are doing that activity. Now, how much of an impact this will have on new players, I don't really know right now because there aren't a ton of new players. I don't think a ton of people just bought Fallout 76, but overall I feel like this is a really good addition to the game. It's one of those things that is just an extra added feature you'll have there. Now as you scan around the map or go to the social menu, you could easily find other people to play with. Now we just need a text chat so we could actually talk to them. Although with this update, we actually had several other smaller things that I think are getting overlooked, in particular after the season system, because that's such a big new addition. Although some of the smaller changes do have pretty large impacts. PvP was more or less gutted with this. We got the long anticipated change where if you are on a team and you try and PvP with another person on another team, it'll only open PvP restrictions for you two individuals, not for both teams in its entirety as it worked before. That's what started the whole War on Bethesda thing, and we knew that was coming. But even further, they actually made it so punchy boards can no longer be stacked on top of each other. To the untrained eye, you might be like, okay, who cares? But this was actually a way to insta-kill players, more or less, and people created trap bases around these very heavily, as it was one of the most effective ways to kill other players.
He's in the machine. He bought my yellow cake. Killed him. 2,700 caps. Thanks for the caps, buddy. I appreciate it. He's pissed.
But it seemed pretty clear that was an unintended feature. They weren't meant to be used in that exact way. And even further, around nuke mines, they made it so radiation from nuke mines no longer affects friendly or neutral players. This is a popular way to actually grief people, even those in pacifist mode, not PvPing with you. And then finally, a very popular one used by both PvPers and PvEers, there was an exploit where you could basically get God mode. The map received some minor changes, notably at Mount Blair, as well as the Rusty Pick, because now the Purveyor is there. There's now a standalone chat volume slider independent of the master volume slider, which is a huge new addition, because it makes it so you could turn down game volume overall, but leave other people's voices, the chat, up. So if there's at times during fights where you're trying to hear your friend you're playing with and you just couldn't because of all the other stuff in the background, this will fix that. The Wendigo Colossus now has a flat 10% chance to spawn at nuked areas. Previously it was roughly 6%, so it's a small buff in that regard. Scorch Beasts can no longer be turned to ash or goo piles on death, which is really handy. It's kind of minor, but at points they would turn into that goo pile and it would just be hard to find or frustrating and confusing rather than the large body, assuming the large body doesn't fall into a hole. They added in a variety of mod plans for the Secret Service Under Armor, and a huge quality of life change, the faction daily quest givers are now stationary, so no longer will you be looking around all of Foundation for Ward, he just will stand in this spot always. Although it seems like also with this update came a bunch of unforeseen circumstances, a couple of things that broke or just were not working as intended. We mentioned before the issue with challenges, which certainly benefits players, but even further, there's an issue in the Nuclear Winter mode right now where you are getting awarded at points those holiday rewards. Nuclear Winter had several seasonal events. You had to gain a certain amount of experience in a limited time, and for me, I didn't finish, but I got one of the awards today while playing. Bethesda is aware of this. It seems like they'll probably fix it at some point, but at least for right now, it is a good time to just jump in and see if you proc one of these. Although not so positive for players, it seems like there's more crashing. I had 2 crashes just in the time since this update went live, which is kind of big. I haven't experienced any crashes over the past couple of months, so perhaps a coincidence, but perhaps not. And actually, one crash was so big for me that I had to restart my computer. It just locked up one monitor, I don't know what happened, and now Fallout 76 is listed as uninstalled. I could still launch the game using the EXE, but I don't know what happened there, and I've heard other people also having similar issues. They broke the adrenaline perk card, like it just doesn't work anymore. This would give you bonus damage after a kill, but now it just doesn't. It seems like due to some changes with herbivore and carnivore, those being 2 of the mutations in the game, if you are a herbivore, you will have no bonus carry weight from foods now, even though previously you did, and if you're a carnivore, now you'll have double carry weight bonuses from foods. Ironically enough, in the update to bring public teams, it seems like Bethesda somehow accidentally deleted the team up emote. So there used to be this regular default emote where you could ask other players to be in a team with you. But for me, it's just gone. I've heard other people having this issue. I have other ones that are team ups that came from skin packs from the Atomic Shop, but as far as that default one, it's just nowhere to be found. And just when you thought things could not possibly get any worse, we have some new additions to the Atomic Shop. So I'll be honest, I really expected those lunchboxes in particular to make an appearance on the Atomic Shop, and I was just prepared for that. Fortunately, none of the new utility items that are available during the score season are available right now in the Atomic Shop. Now perhaps once this 2-week window does end and you can start spending atoms on that content, they'll also be added to the Atomic Shop, but at least right now there's no indication that'll be the case. Although, one of the seemingly cool new additions was the Screaming Eagle skin for the handmade rifle. Except this thing is an absolute abomination. So basically this skin is taking the handmade rifle and making it more into a service rifle or R91 like we had in past Fallout games, or at least that style. Except much of it just either isn't well implemented or just doesn't work. You can see while you're reloading with this $5 skin, your hand clips through the mag well, because you're still using handmade rifle animations even though those animations don't fit the skin and the new model it assigns. Even further, by default, it only has a front scope. You can attach sights and scopes like any weapon in Fallout, and we'll get to that also. But by default, if you're just using iron sights, it's only a front sight, and even further, it's misaligned. If you're aiming down sights pointing at somebody's head with this iron sight, your bullet will actually go below where you are aiming, so you have to kind of aim in the nub somewhere. But alright, just attach a red dot sight, no big deal. And although this does work functionally, it also clips throughout the entire weapon, like the magazine release, and just overall collides with a lot of this, and it doesn't make sense physically because they're using the default option for the handmade rifle's red dot sight, even though that doesn't fit on this different skin. And last but not least, notice anything while you're firing? In fairness, this one you may not even notice, but the bolt on this weapon doesn't move at all because I guess they decided, hey, we don't have to actually animate this. So it's bad, and I think it's particularly worse because it is a $5 skin, but just a lot of little things that really aren't the biggest deal in the world. You can still buy this one and have your weapon look cooler. It's just kind of embarrassing from a large company like Bethesda to post something like this for purchase and just not work. And also, just funny enough, while I was recording this clip, look at all these bugs I got. I got one hard server crash just right as I was about to start. And then I had this oddity with the weapons workbench with the menu popping up way after the fact, like a good 5 seconds later. And while I was 10-15 feet away from the bench, although fortunately with this update it wasn't all bad, as Bethesda also brought several bug fixes to the game and just some general quality of life fixes. The rustic water mill does spin again. Previously this was not spinning and not working appropriately, but that has been resolved. The survival tent had an issue in the past where after placing it down and removing it, the no build area, so like the area that is crossed off for your survival tent, would remain, meaning somebody else couldn't place theirs down there even though there was nothing preventing it. That has been resolved. In VATS, now charging weapons like the Gauss weapons or the bow now correctly deal how much damage should be dealt based off the charge they have. Bows and crossbows with the plasma mod now correctly deal energy damage in addition to normal damage, which is kind of a big one. They fixed an issue where players could lose carry weight bonuses upon death and thus only could respawn at Vault 76. That's another really big one that's been around for a while. A myriad of other things that I haven't mentioned, although there were several bugs that didn't get fixed, the fast travel bug being one of the biggest ones. Seemingly this wasn't introduced with Wastelanders, but it was made worse by that update, which now came out a couple of months ago. And more or less as you're trying to fast travel, in particular it seems like with bloody builds, it'll just cancel it, and you have to kind of retry this several times to finally get to your destination. Bethesda responded to some posts around this, but at least for right now we are still waiting. The hotkey quick wheel bug in Nuclear Winter is still not fixed, so immediately after joining the match you can't use hotkeys, you can't use your quick wheel because it just doesn't populate, and also this video wouldn't be complete without a slight at IGN. So we had this whole saga of the Fallout 76 roadmap gameplay being shown at the IGN Summer of Gaming. It originally was meant to come out on the 18th, it then was mysteriously pulled and reposted for today on the 30th. A lot of us were hoping that it would end up being an E3-esque trailer, like what Bethesda would have shown at E3, but it was also weird because Bethesda officially never acknowledged this. So it came today, and I'm honestly surprised by how bad it was. So in effect, what IGN posted was some gameplay of that content that was on the PTS, so things like the Wendigo Colossus, public teams, etc., but they clearly filmed this interview like a month ago. So Bethesda was talking about how all this new content was coming in patch 20 because this was filmed before the delay of Legendary Perks and the Wendigo Colossus event, and even further, they released this video and this gameplay / interview after the update went live. So they're talking about this hypothetical future update and even go over a potential release date before the end of June, but they sat on it for so long that it almost became irrelevant. There's a few quotes that were notable, but nothing major, and just bizarre to me that IGN sat on this for so long because it would have been a lot more impactful or made a lot more sense to release 2-3 weeks ago when they originally intended. And also, one final note, we do have the changes in game to Atlas Observatory in preparation for the Brotherhood of Steel's eventual arrival there, but otherwise no changes with that. Patch 20 is an interesting one to me because it adds in a lot of foundations for the game that I think are good. Public teams I think is just a very healthy addition, there's really no downside to that one. Seasons has some pros and cons. I think the cost associated with them and just how much you have to keep up on it is kind of crazy. It's clearly designed for people to be pulling out their wallets towards the end. If you get to 80 levels, you're probably going to want to get those last 20 because at the end you get a big bundle, and Bethesda clearly knows that. But it's another one that I think is good to have in the background. It does make you play the game. It makes you try some different things that you maybe don't typically do. Plus, you could pretty easily see how far away you are from some more near rewards. There's a lot of skins in there that I'll probably grind to or maybe play a couple of extra hours over the course of several weeks because I want them. Almost certainly I won't be grinding to the end and dumping those 150 hours in, but I think it actually does a pretty good job at giving something for both casual and hardcore fans to work towards. But again, something like this really lives or dies based on the other content in the game, because if it's just another grind, I'm not all that interested. Originally, patch 20 would have been one of the biggest updates to the game overall, also including a colossal problem and legendary perks, and I wouldn't be shocked if one of the reasons those were delayed is because Bethesda is trying to space out their content load, not just dump everything with this one, but now in another month we'll get that update. But in general with this one, it is pretty crazy how clear it is that the content that was on the PTS, like public teams, came out flawlessly. But then that other content is just bad. Seasons overall is mostly fine, but when it comes to that one big new thing, that with the ammo converter, and even some of the other stuff, like the skins and other changes that didn't go live on the PTS, they were just not tested. Like, the point of the PTS was to avoid problems like this, and even after the fact, we're still getting them. But either way, that is my overview and opinions on patch 20. Hopefully you guys found this video informative. I'd love to hear from you down below, in particular in Seasons. Is that something you like to see in the game? Are you happy it's there? Or is it something you'll just ignore and move beyond? As always, again though, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.